welcome back to Roll
with the Troll.
We are talking about Cobra Kai again today. I love this topic.
Yeah.
You guys, grab some popcorn. We're going to have a lot of fucking fun with this video. I'm serious. I came up with this idea like a year ago. Remember that?
I think even more than that. I
Yeah.
remember talking about it quite a while ago.
Yeah, I was like, we got to rank all the finishing moves.
Yeah.
Because no one else does this on their channels. And I like the whole idea of the way that the Karate Kid and Cobra Kai use the finishing moves as part of the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're really important to the story. You don't see this so much in like Rocky and a lot of other action kind of franchises, where the finishing kind of move that really puts the opponent away is really a part of the narrative so much, and that it's part of the character who's using it.
Right.
You see some of that. There's a little bit of that like in Rocky and such, but I think Karate Kid and Cobra Kai use it in a really important way.
They've kind of perfected that technique of the storytelling is introducing that move early on as something that they're learning or working on, and then bam, they use it when they need it.
Yeah, and it relates to their character usually.
Yes.
That not always, but I think a lot of times it ends up relating to who they are in a way. Like, so, well, let's go ahead and list them all. Okay, guys, we put together a list of 7 finishing moves. You might be able to make a small argument for a couple others that we're kind of leaving out, but I think for the most part, these are the ones that really got the attention. You ready for the list?
I am.
All right, so I'm going to list them out in order of how we saw them, in the chronological order that they were introduced, and then we'll rank them from least cool to most cool. All right, so in Karate Kid 1, we saw the crane kick.
Right.
Very famous thing. People were doing that in the streets in the mid-'80s.
It's so famous, they still hang a banner with a picture of it at the karate tournaments now, 30-something years later.
Yeah, it's that famous of a thing.
So.
Yeah, and people still talk about it on the show, just like in real life. The crane kick is wildly popular, so that will be in the discussion. That'll be one of the 7. Then in Karate Kid Part 2, we have the drum technique. We'll talk about that. We'll rank that one as well. Karate Kid Part 3 didn't really have a particular move, but it had kata in general. And that was talked about a lot throughout Karate Kid 3. And then, of course, by the way, tons of spoilers, guys. If you don't know every part of Cobra Kai, you don't want to see this video right now. You know what you do? You watch it on silent, and that way we still get credit for the view with YouTube and the algorithm, and then you don't have to get anything spoiled. Because we need some help in the algorithm. Please like, subscribe, click blah, 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 you know, the bells and all that other shit. All right, Karate Kid 4, or the next Karate Kid, as it's more properly called. This isn't so much a move, but Julie was taught to fight blind.
Yeah.
So that will also be in our list. That was kind of a move, not exactly, but somewhat. Okay. Then we get into Cobra Kai Season 1, where Daniel had taught Robbie the standing on one hand, the one-handed double kick.
Yeah.
That was quite a move.
Yeah, one-handed handstand.
Yeah.
Freeing up both legs for the kick.
Yes. What a powerful, powerful thing that is. So we'll rank that as well. I should point out, before I get into these last ones, the idea of the ranking is not like which one's just the coolest move. Okay? We don't want that. It's which one is, we're going to rank them in terms of their importance to the narrative and to the characters. Right? We're not here to judge the karate itself. We're just here to judge where these belong in our ranking of what really had the most impact, what was the most cool, and what wasn't. All right, let's go a little further now. So we left off at Cobra Kai Season 1. I mentioned how we had the one-handed double kick.
Yep.
Now let's talk about what we learn a little further into Cobra Kai. So we had Daniel in Season 3 learning about the ancient scroll from Chozen.
Right.
And this was a powerful move.
Yes.
Really powerful because it's got lethal intent. Or it can have lethal intent. So that's a really great one we're going to rank as well. And then we also saw in Cobra Kai Season 4, Johnny introduced something we had never seen before, the flying tornado kick.
Right.
Hey, you guys, could you let me know in the comments if he had used that maybe in the first Karate Kid? Maybe that was... It wouldn't surprise me if there was a quick scene with that somewhere that we just never knew the name of it and never got any real attention.
Sounds like an excuse to go back and rewatch the movie.
Rewatch the movie for the 1 millionth time. Yeah, I'm sure someone's going to say, actually, there's a clip of him doing it in the first film, and this is a flashback to that, which that's really interesting storytelling for the universe, if that's the case. But anyway, let's not digress. All right, so here's the list, guys. You've heard about the 7 rankings, the 7 entries that we're going to rank. Let's rank these things. You ready?
Yes, number 7.
All right, voice of reason. Number 7. You guys, you could probably guess it. And by the way, Comment along, if you would. Give us your own list, how you would rank these 7, okay? I'd love to hear what you guys think. Number 7 for both of us here is Kata from Karate Kid Part 3.
Yeah.
I don't think that was a great big ending. I don't think it was particularly interesting. I think the point they were making was you don't necessarily need the most violent, flashy, biggest move to essentially win. And Daniel had been getting shit on that whole movie about Kata. Remember that? They were always, he's like, Kata's not going to win a tournament. That was said.
Yeah.
You know, they were kind of laughing at him about Kata, and ultimately it was that spirituality that saved him. That's a nice note. I don't think it was played out particularly well in that movie. It wasn't very believable. And for me, I hated the way that it stopped Mike Barnes dead in his tracks.
Yeah, that was always a little weird to me. But as you said, a lot of times these finishing moves and the way that they're weaved into the story ahead of time are really addressing something personal for the character. There's a lesson that they have to learn or something that they have to overcome. And for Daniel in that movie, Kata was representing how unbalanced he was and his need to regain focus and balance, and that's what Kata does. So that's why that was the finishing move for him in that movie. But yeah, it didn't make sense that Mike Barnes was so befuddled by it.
That's what I really didn't like. I agree with what you just said very much. I think it was great for Daniel. But the fact that Mike Barnes, who's the bad boy, Mike Barnes doesn't even flinch at kicking a woman in the fucking pelvis.
Yeah.
And yet Daniel does a little bit of kata and gets into a weird stance, a weird position. And somehow Mike Barnes is like, whoa, what am I going to do with this?
What am I seeing
He
here?
had no limits otherwise, but that fucked him up. That was bizarre. So that's why that belongs at number 7. It was the least convincing of the 7. All right, number 6, also not particularly strong on the list. We've got blind ass kicking from the next Karate Kid.
Yes, Julie Pierce.
Yeah, in a way, it's kind of an emotional scene that when if you guys remember, Ned had to fight really dirty because even though he's a big muscular man with years and years of martial arts training,
he was getting his ass kicked by Julie.
he hadn't scored a punch or anything. It was really bad. Julie was handing his ass to him. So he threw mud in her face or dirt or something. And then Julie had been trained by Miyagi and the monks to fight blind and to sense what's around her. So much as Daniel starts to teach the kids a little bit in Cobra Kai too. So she was able to use that successfully. And I thought that was kind of a powerful moment. I thought that was cool. It was better than Kata. It played out better. But that whole final fight in Next Karate Kid is really weak. It's the worst final fight in anything we've seen in the whole series. Right. So for that reason, it wasn't quite as good as it could have been. There was no real dramatic music to go with it. They didn't. Oh
yeah, you're right.
You know what I mean? They didn't do like a flashback to her learning it, and they really missed a huge opportunity there to make that scene 100 times more dramatic.
It could have been more powerful than it was.
That movie was so lazy right up until the end.
Yeah.
They missed every big opportunity to make each scene the best it could have been, and they really flopped on that one. So, yeah, that one belongs near the bottom at number 6. But now, let's move on to number 5. Now, number 5 is when I think we start to get into some better deliveries. The number 5 on our list, guys, is from Cobra Kai Season 1. It is the double kick on one hand. The one-handed double kick.
The one-handed double kick by Robbie.
Yeah, the Daniel had taught Robbie. Remember, Robbie struggled with this one.
Yeah.
But we also then saw him. I like that scene where we see Robbie skateboarding way before the tournament. Yeah. And he does execute basically that same kind of thing.
The one-handed handstand.
Yeah. So he's able to do something very similar. He did the one-handed handstand at least. So that was really cool. I thought that was a great ending. It didn't win him the tournament. He still had another point to go and then he lost. But I thought that was kind of cool too, though, was that this really wasn't a true finishing move. It was the last big thing Robbie did in the tournament. It was the last big, pulling something out of his pocket, but it really wasn't an ending to the tournament and didn't win it for him. It's the only time in any of these that it didn't score the win. Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. It was creative, and it was a nice way to say, hey, we don't need to follow the template exactly. Let's give him a finishing move, even though it's not quite the finish. So I thought that was really interesting, didn't you? Yep. Should we talk about number 4?
Number 4, please.
Guys, you're probably wondering, where's the crane kick on this list? The crane kick is by far the most famous. Yes. Everybody and their mother knows crane kick. A lot of people don't know these other moves. Well, we're finally going to put the crane kick at number 4. It's right in the middle of this list.
I can hear people gasping all over the place right now.
That it should be higher on the list?
Yeah.
Yeah, and truly, you know, it's easy to get swept up in the first film, and if you were around in the 80s, it's easy to get swept up in, and again, guys, for those of you who are younger, you don't understand. When Karate Kid came out, people were in the streets doing crane kick. If you were standing on line at a bank, they were doing crane kick. Yeah. I mean, the whole thing was, can you do it? Can you do it? It swept the nation.
Yeah, it did. And the placement at number 4 will make more sense as we move through the rest of them.
Yeah, look, it was great. It was really great that Daniel had only seen Mr. Miyagi do that move, and that then in his brilliance in the end, Daniel's so resourceful. That's one thing about Daniel. He's very resourceful.
Yeah.
Just like Robbie. I think Robbie's also very resourceful.
Yeah.
Very quick on his feet to figure something out. And Daniel realized that this was going to be the way to do it because he was injured on the other leg. So he had to, without any real training in that particular technique, he had to pull it off. And no solid training. I think he fucked around with it a little bit.
He did. He kind of dissected it and worked it out.
Yeah. Well, so he didn't go too far with it. Now let's talk about number 3.
Yeah.
Ready for this?
I am.
The Flying Tornado Kick. Flying Tornado Kick is introduced by Johnny Lawrence. Like we said, let me know if maybe he did do that in the first film somewhere. Maybe there's a quick montage scene with it. But to our knowledge, it was only introduced in Cobra Kai season 4. Johnny was teaching the kids this. Multiple kids used it. Miguel tried it, and he hurt himself.
Yeah.
And I think that was even addressed somewhere, too, that like it's a dangerous kick to try. You can hurt yourself doing it. Miguel fucked himself up trying it, and it threw off his whole tournament.
Sam pulled it off, though.
Sam pulled it off against a girl who really needed a kick in the face.
Yeah.
You know, if anyone needed a kick in the face, it was Piper.
Yeah.
And Sam used it against her. So
well done, Sam.
Yeah, well done, Sam. We like you on that one. That was for sure good. So that flying tornado kick, I think, was cool. And I really liked the way that Daniel had seen Sam do it. And he's like, what was that?
Yeah.
And Daniel was so identifying that as that's a Johnny move.
Yep,
you know, that is a balls out Johnny move. All right, guys, number 2. I've been talking about this for 100 years. To me, the coolest thing I had ever seen up until recently was when Daniel does the drum technique in Karate Kid Part 2. Now, most people, when Karate Kid Part 2 came out, were just like, yeah, that's nothing compared to the crane kick. The crane kick was really emotional. Drum technique, not such a big deal. I'm the total opposite on this, you guys. To me, the drum technique was brilliant because Daniel thought of it. And I know these you don't necessarily think about this in Karate Kid Part 2, but in Karate Kid Part 2, the idea of the drum, the whole concept of that spinning side to side had nothing to do with physicality, right? It was supposed to do more like the yin and the yang and the rhythm of life, and it was very spiritual. And then Daniel's the one, if you remember, he turned to Mr. Miyagi and he said, well, couldn't you incorporate this as like a block or something? Like, I forget the way Daniel worded it, but Daniel's the one that actually saw the physicality in it. And then Mr. Miyagi just said, ask drum. Remember that?
Yes.
And you see him kind of working it out and playing with it throughout the film in his training.
He asked the drum and he got an answer. He figured it out.
Yeah, he really did. He ultimately did. It was the one thing that Daniel really did on his own without Miyagi's help.
Yes.
Even though it was inspired by the drum toy itself and by the fact that the Okinawans, you know, for them it was a symbol, but the fact that Daniel turned it into something physical I thought was really brilliant. And he was working out how to use it as like a block and then a counter, and he got really particular with it. And even though he didn't have it fully fleshed out, he pulled it out of his hat when he needed to save his own life against Chozen.
And it was always our number 1 move until...
Yeah, that was my number 1 favorite by far, right?
Yeah.
And yours too. Until we ended up getting in Cobra Kai season 3, we got our number 1. The ancient scroll paralyzing murderous death technique.
For lack of a better word.
Introduced by Chozen. It's kind of interesting that our number 1 and 2 both have something to do. One was taught by Chozen and one was taught to Chozen when Daniel beat him. Isn't that interesting?
Yep.
That just shows you how great. And our favorite, remember our ranking where we put Karate Kid Part 2 as well. So anyway, Chozen's a huge part of the whole thing to us. This move is especially important because for one, it beat Kreese. And 2, Daniel even used it against Johnny. So anyway, guys, we're out of time.
Very effective.
Let us know what you think in the comments. Like, subscribe. We've got a million more Cobra Kai videos coming. As always, we really appreciate your guys' support in the channel. And we hope you liked our rankings. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks so much.